This is Dan Donaldson from Martin, Tennessee. I'm Alan Huey of P32 Labs, and thank you for joining us. And we'd love to chat a few moments about you and your experience using our products. We appreciate it.
Sure, I'll be glad to share. It's easy to talk about things that you really believe in. You know, my thing is, how can you convince somebody of something that you don't believe in? But when you believe in it, it's easy to talk about it, because when you're talking from heart rather than head, it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
That's a perfect segue into talking about your vocation as a pastor of a church. You've been pastoring a church now for how long?
Only 43 years.
But you also held a full-time job while pastoring this church for a long time, right?
Yes, I worked for Goodyear in Union City for 35 years. Great experience, you know, and it fed my kids and family. So I'm thankful for it.
I want to tell the audience, you know, I haven't seen you in a long time because, you know, we've been traveling back and forth. I saw you in Walmart with a cane.
Yep. As Linda called it, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
She calls it my friend. It's funny how the Lord works. You know, like I said, we've been friends for 25 years or so, but I hadn't seen you in several years.
Mm-mm.
But that day at Walmart, my hip was bothering me so bad because I've had my right hip replaced and my left one is due to get replaced as soon as I can. So that's why I was walking with the walking stick. And I told Linda, I said, I can't go any further. I can't walk any further. I'm going back to the car. You go ahead and finish doing what you're doing, and I'm headed back to the car. Where my process of heading back to the car is when I walked into you. You know, we're standing there talking, and it's amazing how God's plan is unfold when we don't see what he's doing, but he always puts us right place, the right time to do what he wants done. And so we just started talking, and you started talking about that cream. I said, what cream? What are you talking about? And I believe you made the statement, well, Dan, I'll bring some by your house, you know, tonight to let you try. And at that point, I didn't know you knew where I live. I didn't know you lived right down the street from me, you know.
I think we've been in this house 23 years, and when I would see you on the swing or outside working, I'm always honking the horn. So you've been waving at me. You just didn't know.
Didn't know who it was. Yeah, you came by and brought cream and all, and with my hips, everything, how they were going. And Linda had a shoulder replacement, and she got a tear on a rotator cuff on the other shoulder. So she's in discomfort most of the time. And so just listening to you talk about the cream and all, and you brought it over, I said, well, we'll try it. We'll just try it and see how it works. Surprisingly, and nothing negative, but surprisingly, my hips all start feeling much better. And it didn't take long for the comfort to start setting in. And then Linda was saying her shoulder was feeling better. I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, Linda, I don't know. I said, now, Alan is my friend. And I don't know if this is a psychological response, you know, by him being my friend, and I think it ought to feel better. So in my mind, I'm telling myself, I feel better. In reality, I might not be, because it just meant how I feel, you know, toward Alan. And Linda was saying the same thing. So good, that's where we started.
I think you started with the cream, or did I bring you the salve?
We started with the cream.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah. Now we had cream and salve.
Yeah.
Because when we really started using it, I was using the cream and Linda was using the salve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think she ran out of the salve, out of the samples, and so she started using some of the cream, and she liked the cream better. She said because it felt like it penetrated better. But I said, no, this is all a mind thing. You know, nothing can work this well, you know, like this quick. So I told her, I said, okay. I said, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a non-biased person, somebody I know that's going through something, and that will be truthful. I said, they don't know Alan, they don't know anything about him, but they'll be truthful if it's beneficial to them. I took some to church, and there's 3 people that I gave some to right off the bat to get sort of a spectrum as to, does it work? Does it not? We'll just see. And Miss Pauline, one of my members who had bad arthritis in her knees, I mean, both knees, a lot of sudden she'll miss church because she can't walk on her knees. You have to really know Miss Pauline. She's going to tell you what's on her mind, whether you like it or not. I mean, she does that to me all the time. She's just straightforward as she can be. And I love her for being like that. And I gave some to another lady named Judy who had bad knees, and then gave some to Reverend Brent who had a bad hip as well. So I gave it to 3 people. Miss Pauline in particular, I gave it to her on a Sunday. I called her Tuesday evening to see if she had tried the cream. And she said, Reverend, let me tell you what I'm doing. And I said, you just have to really know her. She said, I'm sitting here on my couch, and I'm just flopping my leg, just moving, and my knees are not bothering me at all. Mm-hmm. She said, let me tell you what I did yesterday. I said, what? She said, I got got up and walked over to my niece's house. No, yesterday. I said, your niece? She said, yeah. And she was telling me where she lived in Humboldt. She walked somewhere between 2 to 3 miles
Wow.
from her house to her niece, because I know where her niece lives. She said, I walked all the way over there. My knees hadn't bothered me one bit. I said, really? She said, no, had not bothered me one bit. She said, I got tired from walking. She said, but my knees never did bother me. I got up this morning, my knees are not bothering me. And she only used it at one time. And it went through all Monday and Tuesday when we were talking. She was still feeling good. I said, that stuff must be pretty good, because she would tell me, no, if it wasn't. Judy, same thing. Her knees, she just elaborated about how much better she felt, able to walk. Reverend Brent, now I called him, asked him how was he doing. He said, Dan, I'm in Walmart, and I just remembered I left my walking stick. He said, and I left it and didn't miss it. You know, that's the response initially I got from people who are using this cream.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It is. You know, I never thought it'd be like this. But there's one other, probably 30 folks of my people in church have used this or are using it, you know, today. And one friend of mine, Donald, he had twisted his knee somehow, because he rides a bike all the time, play golf, but he messed his knee up, and knee swole up, had to get a cortisone shot at his knee. He was in pain with his knee. I gave him a sample to try it. He called me back the next day. This is how he opened up our conversation when we first started talking. He said, Dan, I don't know who this guy is who made this cream. He said, but both of y'all are going to jail. I said, what do you mean going to jail? He said, this stuff cannot be legal. That was his comment. He said, this stuff cannot be legal. He said, I rubbed my knee down. He said, then in about 15 minutes or so, my pain was gone. He said, it wasn't feeling better. He said, my pain was gone. I was walking around and doing everything, and everything was going great. My wife couldn't believe it. So she tried it. She was feeling much better. He said, yeah, y'all going to jail.
That is a hilarious story. And how's he doing today?
But he's doing much better now. He's back riding his bicycle and playing golf and doing things. So he's back to normal. The cream has really put him back on his feet. And in fact, I was in Humboldt. Linda and I was there one Thursday, Friday morning, was down there eating breakfast. And he called me and he said, Dan, where are you? I said, well, matter of fact, I'm in Humboldt. Why? You got the cream with you? I said, well, yeah, because I'm making my business. I don't leave home without some now. And that's true. And so I said, well, yeah. He said, well, I'm coming up there. You got a jar? Because I need a jar of it. I've run out. I said, well, yeah, I got some. And about 30 minutes later, here he comes. He came to get him some cream, you know, and he said he doesn't want to run out, and he doesn't. His sister that he's giving some to, and she's going crazy. She's the one I think I told you the other day. She called, wanted the 4-ounce jar.
Oh yeah.
She said,
yeah, we'll do that for some people. That's one thing about, you know, owning your own lab. We can customize orders for people. But what was the term you said? She's got a lot of hands going in her jar. That's what it is. Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what I was going to say. The reason she wanted the bigger jar, she got all these hands going into her little jar, and they use up all her cream, and she get mad.
That's hilarious. You know, I remember you invited Kim and I to your church one Sunday, and it was a good Sunday because we had a lot of food there after you had a great Sunday school class, a great sermon, and then we had food, and the food was wonderful. Your church has got a lot of great cooks there, I'm telling you. And I remember a guy that was there that he was telling me that he had a toe that he couldn't bend anymore. I think it was his big toe and his left foot, or right, can't remember. But he was telling me that he was a truck driver and he had developed stiffness in his toe, and we don't know if it was gout or what it was. But what was his name?
His name was D.
Okay.
D. Sowell. Yep. And he had that problem.
What was the story about his shoes or boots? What was that story?
He was telling me about it, that he couldn't bend that toe, so there were certain shoes and all he said he couldn't wear because his toes wouldn't bend or whatever. So he tried it on his foot. He said when he knew anything, that toe was moving. He said I was bending my toes. He said it blew my mind that I could bend my toes. Well, that Sunday he had come to church. He had on his cowboy boots, and he said I normally can't wear them because my toe and all won't bend. I just can't wear them. They hurt my feet. He said I got them on this morning, and he said and it's not bothering me at all. He said I don't know what it is, but that cream got me walking again.
That's amazing. Yeah, he come up and thanked me for it. I don't think he ever had it diagnosed as gout or anything, but we do know it has helped help a lot of people with gout. And I remember Mr. Edgar, you
Oh
didn't
yeah.
give him some, did y'all used to do some ministry work together, right? Do some minor cabinet work or something like that
Yeah,
together?
we had what was called a 3M ministry. We were mission-minded men,
Yeah.
and there was 5 of us in our group: Sylvester Boyd, Tommy Holloman, Evangel Trice, Edgar Harrell, and myself. And we used to go around with people who needed help. And in most cases, if they could buy the material, we did the work, and we just enjoyed it going all over Tennessee. That was our fun. And Edgar developed bursitis in his hip, so I gave him a sample of the cream to try to see if it helped. Well, he called me. He said, Dan, he said, I don't know what it is. He said, but within minutes, my pain was gone. He said, I could lift that hip and do whatever I wanted to. In fact, the next day he came over to the house and he was saying, see, watch this. He just raised his leg up, threw it up in the air. He said, this hip is not bothering me at all. He said, I don't know what it is. He said, but I want some more of it.
You know,
Because
he's always been active. He doesn't have hardly any fat on him at all.
No.
He coached my kids in basketball,
Mhm.
and you know his kids. You know, he had one that played at University of Tennessee that went on the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
So he's been involved in athletics for years, but he's still in great shape. You know.
Yeah, he is. He really is. He's slim and active, and he got when we doing our fish all the time. You know, he got a big boat. I've gone with him up on the lake in Kentucky Dam and all. Fish, he love the fish. Great fisherman. He's not gonna go out and not come back with some fish.
He's gonna fish. Huh? He's
Yeah,
gonna catch it.
he's gonna catch something. He's gonna catch something every time. But after helped him, he ordered I think like 3 jars of that cream. One for his son, Justin, the one that played football. And you know, if you've been playing football ever since you're in middle school and high school and college and pro, at this stage you're gonna have some aches and pains. You know, so he had some aches and pains. You know, as the Bible said, the sins of his youth show up in old age.
Yeah.
You know, so he began to have some issues showing up. So he ordered cream for him, and there's 2 other people he was talking about. I love about this cream that the advertisement is by word of mouth.
Yeah, I mean that's really how this has grown. I mean, more people tell other people. We use a lot of different type of plants in our cream and our salve. The salve is made with a petroleum jelly base, right?
Mhm.
And most of the petroleum jelly that we could find when we first started is made in other countries. And so we decided that we would make our own petroleum jelly base here. And so we do that by ourselves. We developed that too. And so we try to buy everything within the United States, all of our raw material, all of our essential oils, we do it all. And
Right.
we grow some things. And so we just try to keep everything, trying to as much as we can inside the state of Tennessee. But that way we can control the pipeline and we can control the
Sure.
supply and the inventory and things like that. And we get to know what's in our product. When
Yeah.
people use our product, we haven't had anybody tell us anything about rashes or irritations or anything like that. We haven't heard anything like that. So we may one day have that, but we have to address it then. But we haven't had any. Have you experienced any type of irritation, skin
No.
irritation or anything?
No, no, I've not seen any, side effects from this at all.
Yeah.
No. And the thing that I rub it in, I keep it on my hands, just leave it there. I think I told you Linda to start using it for her TMJ, that she could rub it on her face and it does not affect her skin on the face or anything of that nature. Plus it does give her comfort from her TMJ.
How long has she had the TMJ? Is that something she's had for a while?
Off and on for probably a year, but it's been quite a while. She's been going back and forth with this, but it has helped her with her TMJ. So it's amazing how effective this material is and how so many people respond to this. Most of my church members, they either have some, have used it, they know about it, and then many of them have shared it with other people outside the church. And out of I would say 30 people or better that I know have used it and responded back to me in a very positive manner. I've had one lady who said that she tried it and it really didn't help her that much, but she has bad arthritic knees and a lot of issues, that she's going through, but she said it really didn't help her that much. But she's the only one out of 30 plus that I know personally who have responded very positive to the point they want more. Don't let me run out. They don't know you from Adam, and they know I didn't create it. So it's not that they're responding because of me. They're responding because the cream itself has been effective for them. I had one lady ordered 6 jars at one time.
Yeah.
I had another lady order 10 jars at one time. That it was so great for them. They had family and friends that they knew were going through issues, and they bought the cream for them. You know, I want to get one for my sister, my nephew, my grandmother needs it. And they all made lists of things that they want to share. And the thing that I look at it from that perspective, we want to share good things with people that we know and love.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
That's right.
it might be Joe Blow on the street. You don't care. You ain't going to tell him no way. But if it's something good and positive, we want to tell everybody about it. And that's what I have seen from so many outsiders who saying, I want it, I want to share, I want to give, because they know what it has done for them.
You know, you're a golfer and I'm a golfer. I haven't played golf, and well, since Kim was diagnosed probably almost 3 years ago. But you know, we got a golf date coming up, and but I remember years ago I had developed, they call it golfer's elbow, basically inflammation in your elbow and your left shoulder, probably from hitting the ground so much. I remember I would have to take an Advil or 2 on the front 9 and another Advil or 2 on the back 9 because the pain was just terrible. When we incorporated plant-based nutrition, you know, I went to Cornell, and when I graduated with this plant-based science knowledge, I started incorporating a lot more plants in my diet. Now, when we grew up as a child, we had 3 gardens and an orchard. We basically ate what we grew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we never had any health issues growing up. I remember getting chicken pox as a kid, but I don't remember getting flu. And I don't remember any kind of crazy type of sickness other than one appendicitis. Thank God I've never been in the hospital. We use God's plants in this medicine. We go over to look at biblical history and other medicinal history books from years ago. They use plants for medicine. We're really not inventing anything new. I'm just taking a few plants. We're just taking a few plants that God made, and we're putting them together, and we put them inside of products. Today's medicine that we have is not been around that long. But plant-based medicine has been around since the creation of, since God created the earth.
Yes.
We're really not doing anything new. We're just going back and looking through Eastern medicine, and we're looking through the Bible, and we're looking through, different type of plants and what kind of benefit they have for the body. And whether it's nutrition or whether it's a topical like what we make, I think the more we re-educate ourselves on the plants that he gave us, I think we can probably solve a lot of issues with our health. I really do.
The Lord gave us the remedy to situations that he knew was going to develop. When we stop and look at the creation of everything, God had put everything in place before he made man. All the plants were here. Everything was already here. Then he made man. It's almost as if God created fish. Then he said, oh yeah, I need to create some water. No, he had the water here. Then he brought the fish.
Yeah.
He had everything that we need to survive in this world was already on this earth. Then he brought man into existence to live off of all that he knew we were going to need, and so we're just going back to the first love. This is what he has created. This is what he has given us. Use that. And if you stop and look at history from our standpoint, my childhood coming up, especially my parents coming up, back then, there was no CVS. We didn't have the pharmacies available, especially us. Those that were there, we couldn't afford to go to them anyway. Our ancestors realized and learned that there are some plants here that are beneficial for us in so many ways in a healing process. How they knew that, where it came from, I don't know. But they knew certain leaves, certain roots that they could draw that could provide certain means of healing for us. And they knew those things and they used them. But then when you stop and look at history as a whole, look how the Indians survived. They had what they called a medicine man. What made him become the medicine man? His trial of testing this and using that, putting this on. And if it works, okay, this will do good for swelling. This can do good for fevers. They learned the things of life that can be beneficial in a healing process. We go back to our ancestors in Africa and all. That's how they survived, the fruits and the plants of life that help them in their healing process. So as you said, what's being done now, this is not new. We're just beginning to go back to what God had instituted from the beginning.
I got a story to tell you. After she was diagnosed, I reached out to a handful of prayer warriors that I knew, and one lived in New Orleans, and another lived in Chicago. So I called Paul down in New Orleans. I said, "Hey man, add Kim to your prayer list. They diagnosed. We don't know what's going to happen. Blah blah blah." He said, "Okay, we got your back. We're going to lift her up in prayer." About 2 days later, I get a package from him in the mail, and it's a bag of bark that a company sells out of California. This bark is taken off of a tree that's grown in Brazil. And I'm looking at the bag. It was amazing to me the stories and the testimonials that people have from boiling this bark and then seeping it and then pouring it and drinking it throughout the day.
Right.
And so another friend of mine that was praying for Kim, he says, "I'm going to send you something in the mail." I said, "I want you to take a look at it." The very same bark came from him. These two guys don't know each other, right? The guy in Chicago actually works in the pharmaceutical industry. So here I am. I've got 3 or 4 bags of this bark. And I promise you, it looks like brown mulch is what it looks like. But it comes from a tree in Brazil. We just created some different plants and put them together that we know worked for Kim when she was having the negative effects from chemotherapy. If we look around, we're just leveraging these plants that God gave us that we can grow and develop. But this is your favorite product, right? The pain cream, right?
Yes, that's it.
DR-7 pain cream. We know one reason people like this so much, it's non-greasy. It doesn't, it's not slippery on your hands.
No, it's not.
And the pain salve is a little greasy because it's got a vapor rub base to it. And a lot of people like that vapor rub base.
Right.
I remember my grandmother used to put vapor rub, take a spoon of it and boiling water on the oven.
Right.
And it would vaporize, basically aromatherapy is what they call it. And she did that for years. I grew up smelling that.
Sure.
People get congested during the winter and things like that. So, well, I think if we can continue using the gifts that God gave us, making medicine, if it's continuing helping people, we're going to continue making it. So thank you for your testimonies. And, you talked about a lot of people being helped, and that's wonderful. It really is.
And I'm thankful that the Lord put us together, not only for our own personal benefit, but it's been a blessing to so many other people, and that's why Linda and I, we put forth efforts to make sure that people are aware of what is available. And this available product is a product that God has already put here. We were just not aware of it. But now that we become aware of what God not only has been doing, but also now what he is doing, then now it's our job to spread this as well as the word itself. But then there's a medicine and medication that can be provided for people to help in this process of existing, in this world.
I'm going to guess you and I are on the same page. Is that chance meeting in Walmart was not a coincidence?
No. That was a sovereign plan of God that he put us together for this moment. You're here for this cause. And so as it unfolds from there to here, we don't know where it's going to be the next 6 months, next year, what's going to come, out of this. But every giant leap starts with a small step.
It does. Well, thank you so much for your participation. Tell Linda we said hello. And,
I sure will. Yes,
Dan
sir.
Donaldson, Pastor Dan Donaldson, Martin, Tennessee. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Alan. Love you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care, brother.